Do you have a finished drawing that you want to bring to life with an authentic vintage look? Halftone coloring is the key. Whether it's comic panels, covers, or full illustrations, halftones add that dynamic retro feel to your art. But what are halftones, and how do you use them? Today we're going to be breaking down a reference image and walking through 7 simple steps to achieve this look, even if you're a total beginner. Let's jump in.
Hey guys, I'm Matt, and I'm back today with another tutorial for RetroSupply. Today we're going to be diving deep into the halftone coloring process with the RetroSupply ColorLab brush bundle. You guys asked for it, you got it.
You can use any halftone brushes you own, but trust me, this pack makes the process way easier and more satisfying.
If you've ever tried halftone coloring, either with other brushes or with RetroSupply's ColorLab bundle, and you felt just like totally lost, I get it. I was there too. When I first opened up the bundle, I was kind of like, you're probably feeling like I was, which was like color codes, percentages. I do art because I'm bad at math. But once I got it, it just like clicked. It just like fell right into place and I understood it completely. And it's deceptively easy and it's super satisfying, guys. It's so fun to color this way.
By the end of this video, you'll be cranking out vintage comic book art like a pro. Let's begin to break down a reference image and see how this process works in action.
So the reference image that we're going to be breaking down today is just something I found off of Pinterest, no big deal. It's an example of kind of the comic panel that I want to achieve today, this romantic vibe. So, especially with the coloring. So let's take a look at the halftones and how they're applied. You can see that it has a very basic color palette. I'm talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I guess if you want to count the caption, 7. So 7 different colors in total. That's it. So something you gotta be mindful of when you're choosing your color palette is keep it basic, keep it simple. These comic book companies, back in the day, they didn't have a lot of money to spend on these works of art. They wanted them produced very cheaply and very quickly. So you gotta really be selective with your colors. Another thing you can notice is the line art, which this isn't a line art video. There is a video about line art that we just did. You can check that out. But I just wanted to bring it up just to show you kind of a starting point where you should be at with your lines. That they're not too clean and they're not perfect. And there is these large areas of black that you see right there, even in his hair. So that's something important too, because that will sell your halftones a lot. Another thing to note is that the colors are offset a bit. They're not perfect. You see this part in her hair, that's where the magenta halftones didn't come through, so it just leaves the yellow, this little yellow strip here at the back of her head. Right here as well, the background color didn't go straight to the line of his face, or even right here in the text bubble, it's misaligned as well. So that's definitely a staple of this style, is that things were not perfect. So don't try to make them perfect. Have fun, get messy. Another thing to notice is that they often use these large non-halftone colors, so just the pure inks in kind of focal points that they want to draw your eye to. For her, it's her red dress. For him, it's his hair. So that's kind of where your eye kind of bounces between the two, and that creates a lot of visual interest. And last thing I wanted to touch on was I know I touched on imperfections, but I'm talking about pure wear and tear on the actual inks of the page. So you can see it a lot down here, where the ink and the color has kind of been rubbed away from age. And that's a big staple of this design too, especially if you want your art to look retro. And there's a bunch of these print defect brushes that come with the ColorLab pack, so we got you covered. And yeah, those are kind of the main things that I wanted to kind of share with you guys, and things that I'm gonna be taking into consideration when I do my coloring today. Today I'm going to be inking this comic panel art that I did, which is reminiscent of something you might find in a 1960s romance comic. So let's show you my sketches. So this is my rough sketch. This is my clean sketch. When I do my sketches, I work clean, but I'm consciously, when I do my line art, which I'll show you right now, I'm consciously trying to get it a little messier because of what I told you in the style breakdown of keeping it not so clean.
Step 1. Preparation.
Before we start to color, there's a little bit of prep work we need to do. But once we get that started and we get the ball rolling, the coloring part is super easy.
Before we start coloring, we need an inked illustration, a textured paper background, halftone brushes from ColorLab, the Halftone color palette, and the ColorLab color charts. These are very important, so save them in your photos for reference. Next, you'll want to set up your layers for later. Your layers should look like this. On top, a paper texture. Next, line art set to multiply. And then 4 blank layers named yellow, red, blue, and black. These should also be set to multiply. Step 2. Choosing a color palette.
So choosing a color palette can be a little intimidating, but it is one of the most important aspects of the halftone coloring process. When I feel a little stuck trying to figure out my colors, I usually just go to something like Pinterest or Instagram and find something that kind of suits the vibe I'm looking for. Like for this piece, I really like the color scheme of the reference image that I showed earlier, so I stole it. I mean, color schemes aren't copywritten, and as long as you change it and modify it to your personal taste, you should be good. And besides, good artists copy, great artists steal. So for this piece, I'm using an analogous color scheme. That just means that the colors are next to each other on the color wheel, which is really pleasing to the eye and suits the romantic vibe that I'm going for. Is this interesting to you guys? Should we do a full video on color and color theory? Let us know in the comments.
Step 3. Blocking in your colors. Before jumping into halftones, we need to do a base color block in.
Wait, you want us to paint our colors with regular brushes? I hear you. Put down your pitchforks, or I guess pens, pitch pens? Let me explain why this step is important. Halftone coloring is super easy, but it can be a little bit bothersome to readjust your colors later on if you're unhappy with them. I don't want to be finished my piece and realize that I don't like the shade of blue that I used for the suit or something like that. That's why I like to go in and do a basic pass of my colors, just to make sure I like them and that they all work together well. This will make your life a lot easier down the line and provide a good jumping off point for your halftone process. And remember, no one will see this but you. It's going to be deleted later, so don't worry about being perfect.
Use a solid brush to fill in large shapes, or set your line art as a reference layer and use the paint bucket tool for easy fills. Step 4. Making a cheat sheet. Now, grab your ColorLab color chart and compare your blocked in colors to the halftone codes. For example, if I want to color this blue suit, I'll find the closest halftone code on the color chart that matches best to my color palette. Write these codes down however you like, in your notes app, on your canvas, or even on a physical piece of paper.
I find using a notebook works the best just because it's something physical that exists in the real world. You don't have to be messing around with apps or layers or anything like that. Plus, this type of office supply feels kind of retro. You might even say it's a retro supply. I'm sorry, I had to make that joke. Moving on.
Step 5. Choosing your halftones. ColorLab includes different halftone textures, like clean dots for a sharp, polished look, dirty dots for that gritty, vintage feel, and line halftones for things like mid-century advertisements. Pick one and stick with it throughout your piece for consistency. Today, I'm using the rough dots to get that old-school printed feel. Step 6. Applying the halftones. Now for the fun part, coloring. Each halftone brush corresponds with a color intensity. For example, R2 is lighter and less saturated. The dots are more spread apart. Or R4, it's darker and more saturated. The dots are tightly packed together. And solid colors, no dots at all, just pure color. The process basically boils down to this. Find the first color needed in the color chart for your selected color. For this example, it's yellow. Select the yellow color and layer. Then pick the matching halftone brush for your color. Paint in the selected areas where yellow is needed, and then repeat this for any red, blue, or black needed on the color code. Still feeling a little lost? I'll show it in action. Let's paint the skin.
So I chose Y2 R2 for the skin tone. So I'm gonna start by making sure I'm on the yellow layer, because it's Y2. I'm gonna pick the yellow color from my palette, and then I'm gonna find the Y2 brush, yellow 2 brush. So I'm already on it here. And just to make sure, let's see, yep, I'm on the yellow layer. Now let's do this arm. So I will start by filling in the arm. There we go. And now I need the R2 part. So we'll make sure we're on the red layer. We'll go to the red color from our swatches, and then we'll find the R2 brush. There we go. Now we fill that in. And from up close, your colors may look weird, but it's an optical illusion. You need to zoom out, and once you're zoomed out enough, it will look like that color. It's magic, guys, I tell you. And then if my skin tone had any blue or black, I would check which brush I need in which intensity, and I'd go in and do that. Another thing to note is that not every color on the color chart requires red, yellow, blue, or black. Okay, so there's a lot of colors, like let's say this kind of yellowish green. It only is Y3, B2, so it doesn't need red. So you just ignore the red and just go yellow and blue. Black is a little tricky because you'd think black starts with a B, right? It should be B, but blue starts with a B2. So what they do is they use K instead. And you'll usually only find those in kind of the darker variants of the colors. That usually these like bigger swatches, they don't have black in them. But you'll see under the swatches, they'll have kind of a darker shade of that. That's when the black will be included.
Eventually, you'll have all your colors down and will be ready to add those finishing touches to really bring it to the next level. Step 7, finishing, wait a minute, wait. Actually, I'm gonna do a little mini tutorial here. Step 6.5, shading, highlights, and bonus tips.
So as we covered in our style breakdown earlier, most of these vintage comic panels achieve their shading through line and not with color. But sometimes you might want to add a little extra pizzazz to your piece, a little spice. Complex shading with halftones is definitely possible, guys.
Let's add some depth to the skin tone by using ColorLab shading brushes to build up the tones. First, select the next intensity up in magenta as a shader brush. For this example, it's the R3 shading brush. Now, just lightly apply shading to the skin layer. And let's take it a step further by showing you how to quickly erase your halftones. For quick, even erasing, create a new layer on a normal blending mode and name it Erase. Select the color white. Now, take your preferred ink brush and draw out any areas you don't want your halftones to show. This is useful for creating things like speech bubbles, captions, highlights, and outlines without having to erase all your halftone layers. Step 7, finishing touches. Now for that extra vintage touch. Use print defect brushes to add ink bleeds, splotches, and slight misprints. And here's a tip. Use these defect brushes as an eraser to create authentic looking wear and tear. The name of the game here is subtlety, folks. Don't overdo it. Just a few touches here and there will get your piece looking nice and retro. I also recommend doing the same process to your line art so it doesn't look too clean in comparison.
Alright, now that I've shown you how to use ColorLab to its full potential, I'm going to finish coloring this bad boy. So let's dive right in. Alright guys, so time for the grand reveal. Let's take a look. So here's my line art, and bam! Pretty cool, right? I think it looks like an actual vintage comic panel. See? Not as complicated as it looks, folks. And it's really fun. Did this tutorial help? Did it help demystify halftones a little bit? Do you got any further questions? Any other tips that you want for ColorLab? Or anything else? What are some new ideas for videos you guys like? What would you like me to cover? Let us know in the comments. We're so happy to be putting out these tutorials and we want to hear from you. What do you guys want to see? So, I'm Matt. Thanks for watching and happy creating.